On episode 450, tonight's guest Simon talked about a Dogman encounter he had in Judy Woods in Woodside, West Yorkshire, England. Unfortunately, he recently had another encounter that was much more traumatic, and that's what he's come back to talk about tonight. Simon, it's great having you back, but not for the reason I mentioned. Welcome back nonetheless.
It's a pleasure to be back, but a very traumatic pleasure. It's just good to open out and tell you about my experience of my encounter. There's no one better to talk to than you.
Well, thanks for saying that, and it's great having you back as well. Not for the reasons we're going to talk about, but it still is great having you back nonetheless. For the listeners who missed episode 450, Simon, please tell them about yourself.
Well, I'm 39 years old. I'm a granddad of two. My granddaughter was born today, actually, Ava Jade, 5'9". So I'm in a bit of a better mood today, talking, as I was a bit worried that when I talk to you, sometimes I get a bit nervous because I don't like replaying traumatic experiences and encounters in my head. So I just thought it's a great time to talk, and it's a great time to get in touch with you and come on the show and tell you exactly what happened and how I am. Apart from that, I'm a hard-working individual. I'm a head chef. I'm a fantastic chef at that. And I'm a very different individual human being.
Congratulations on your granddaughter's birth. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. Your first encounter, the one you told us about in episode 450, affected you quite a bit more than you revealed to me when we first spoke about it. Please expand on that for us.
Yes, I don't think I was being totally honest of how I felt and how things actually affected me. As the weeks gone on, you realise that sometimes things do affect you. I mean, I'm a strong person and I thought I could get over things, but going in the woods is a no-no, especially when the sun starts to set. If I'm passing big dogs across the road, I start shaking, almost like I'm going to go into in a panic attack or something. I can start hyperventilating. I don't like talking about it. If there's anything on TV that involves werewolf movies or dogs, or you see banners at side of buses I just shut down, and it really, really shakes me up. So much so that people said in the past, like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Not listen to me. It's like I go in like a sort of a trance in my own world because of the frights. I was having night terrors, so much so that I didn't quite notice how bad there was. I'd wake up in big sweats. Also, on a night time, if the lights were dim, if I heard like an owl or anything outside that sounded normal, I'd wake up. I keep looking out of the window. It sort of set me like in a really nervous, paranoid state that I couldn't really describe how bad it was. So much so that to block things out, I started drinking a little bit more, quite a bit more actually, to block things out, because that's the only thing that had helped me sleep.
So you really did have a rough go of it. I wish you would have been honest with me when we spoke about that first encounter about how much trouble you're actually having. Yeah, that's not good.
Well, like I said, it's when I spoke to you, obviously things got worse and worse, and I should have been entirely honest. I went to see a counsellor, and when I went to the counsellor, I got nowhere because I had to lie. Because if I were to say, oh, I've seen this werewolf or dogman or creature or animal, then I would probably have been signed to loony bin. So what I did is I told the counsellor that it was like night terrors or having nightmares about this creature. And so I want to blame the counselling didn't help because, first of all, I wasn't being entirely honest like you're supposed to be. And secondly, she was probably trying to treat me for nightmares rather than reality that happened and affected me.
Was one of the things that your counselor recommended lucid dreaming?
It was hard to describe. Basically, how she put it was that these dreams you're having and realities, if you keep putting a blanket over your head, like if there was a ghost present, you just keep throwing a blanket over your head, the ghost will never go away. But if you take the blanket away and confront these feelings, confront these automatic dreams, then I guess that you can conquer it. But I guess I was strong enough and I have progressed, but I haven't actually got to the bottom of the problem. But as you met, I am doing better and I'm bettering myself.
Well, it goes without saying, I'm so glad to hear that you're dealing with it in a healthier way now. That's really good news. Your latest encounter happened in Judy Woods, just like the first one. What can you tell us about the place?
The place is a mysterious place. You always get ill feelings when you go into the woods. People don't seem to talk. They're very strange when they're walking the dogs. It's kind of a very strange atmosphere. It goes for probably 3 miles wide and maybe 5 long. It's very big woods. There's lakes, little rivers. The name it got Judy Woods is apparently there was a bridge and this little girl, she was called Judy. And this is ironic, really. She used to have these nightmares of this wolf and nightmares of werewolves, and the parents didn't believe. And apparently she had been these traumatic experiences that she actually hung herself on the bridge. So that's why they named it Judy Woods, because the parents named it after, because they actually owned it. They used to have the big house at the top at one time. But yeah, it's round it. There's like fields where there's like cattle, cows, sheep. There's been sightings and photographs of deer going early hours of the morning, but it's very hard to see them because you have to be very quiet. They can hear you coming from nearly a mile. They've got their ears that can twist round, pick up footsteps, senses. They're built to sense these things. And it's lovely to walk around, especially. You get nice wildflowers in there. It's not all negative. There's positives to the wood. You know, it's got really, really beautiful features. Like I said, lakes, you can get lost in the woods. There's so many different entrances. It's unreal. But whichever entrance you go, it's a different surprise.
Sounds like a beautiful place, but maybe a little bit of a creepy place as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, sounds that way. Your most recent encounter was so traumatic that your girlfriend who was with you was actually committed to a mental institution after experiencing it with you. How's she doing now?
Well, like I said, it's probably been, since it happened on Sunday, the May 21st, which was a Sunday, because obviously I'm off work probably 6.5 weeks ago. She's probably about a month now since she's been in. It affected her so bad that she had to go to a mental institution called Linfield Mount. They put her on all sorts of medication and drugs, and she just couldn't deal with it. That probably happened about a couple of weeks maybe after the encounter. So yeah, it's probably been just over a month. She just couldn't deal with it. She went about phoning the police. She had like this kind of, not a fit, but like a panic attack, shaking, sort of, like a nervous breakdown, I guess. But anyway, she, like anyone, you won't believe them, would you? If they said they've seen a werewolf or seen this giant Dogman or anything. So she, like me, I won't tell people because I knew they won't believe me. But she went and opened her mouth, didn't she? So she got admitted to this mental institution. Traumatism treats everybody differently, and it treated her in a bad way that she would just totally honest, kept saying that it's coming, this monster, and so they give her all this medication. So hard for me because when I went to visit, they were asking me about it. Was I there? What happened? She claims about seeing this wolf, this monster. And I'm like, well, there was something definitely wasn't right that night, but definitely I didn't see any werewolves. So obviously they were the submitters. They thought she was losing her mind, which made it hard for me because inside I was crying because I wanted to tell the truth. I wanted to tell them. I wanted to get her out and say, come on with me, but I couldn't because I'll probably end up in the same chair she was. So yeah, it's been very hard. But a few days back now, but I saw a previous 3 days before that, and I explained about what I'm doing, and I'm going to contact you, and how I believe her, and how I was there, and how she needs to lie to get herself out of this place. And I said, are you willing to let me give your name? And she said yes, as before. When I first contacted you, she said she don't want to be mentioned. So I guess she's getting better on the move. Her name is Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie.
Yeah, it's a lovely name, isn't it?
That is a beautiful name. I'm so sorry to hear what she's been through, though. That's horrible. When all this was going on, did you ever think about trying to get her to contact me?
Well, you know what security in places like, if you're in a mental institution, imagine going in and saying, this American guy that does Dogman show and he's going to help. They wouldn't have done that, no. I would have been wasting my time. So the only thing I had to do is convince her to say that it wasn't, so then she'll get better, you know? So it ends up like that.
Oh, no, I meant before she was committed.
No, because you're in such an ecstatic state, like almost like a nervous breakdown. How could you talk to someone that's shaking, violently running around, screaming? There was no sense. You couldn't get sense into her. She was just, it just scared her so much. She was ecstatic in a really traumatic way that you couldn't have done. It almost like, imagine somebody's seen somebody be murdered and they come in, they're shaking, they're trying to talk and they're like hyperventilating, deep breaths, you can't get sense out of them, they're so shook up, like, oh, and shaking. You know, it's not a case of, okay, I'll put you forward to Vic. That, to be honest, that's the last thing that come in my mind at the time after the experience that I had. Not because you don't do a good job and not because you can't help, but when there's everything going on at once, you don't think in that way.
Oh, sure, I understand. It just is a shame that she wasn't in a condition where she could speak with me and avoid being put into that mental hospital. That's horrible.
I know, and I believe so, and I wish it never happened like that, and I wish that she didn't deal with it in so much a traumatic way, because definitely I would have put her straight forward to you, and I would have contacted you and I would have said, Vic, please help me. You know, this girl really needs help. She seemed, and I know you would have phoned without hesitation because this is what you do.
I sure would have. I just wish I would have had a chance to do that. If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest on one of my 2 Bigfoot shows, please go to mybigfootsighting.com. All right, Simon, please tell us about this most recent encounter now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Well, it was May. It was Sunday, the 21st of May. Because I get Mondays off, so it always made sense on Sundays. We'd get together, or my friend, and we'd spend, a few hours together. Due to my experience and my encounter, I shut down and avoided a lot of my friends for a while because I was probably traumatized. And like I said, on the opening of the show, I was, I didn't deal with things in the best way. So it's been going on for, being with new girlfriend about probably best part of 3 months now. And she's always been with the night terrors and everything that I've had, and she's experienced them. And my other friend, which I lost contact with, called Michael Thompson, they've been there and very supportive towards me. Very, very supportive. Helps me in all sorts of ways, shapes and forms. Especially talking. So how it talks is like, it interferes in my relationship and friendship. Like, if I went to, should we have a nice walk through park or woods? Oh, no, I wouldn't have that. No, that affected me. That would be the worst thing. So I'd always walk around. So instead of things taking 10 minutes and cutting through woods or shortcuts, it would take me hours. So much so that after a while, when things go on, I said, look, you need to conquer this. Go get out. I said, I've tried it. I've been to counselling. I've tried all the help. It's not working because I can't be totally honest. And I don't want to go through all that again. It's bringing sore memories up in my head. So they said, right, okay, there's only one way. If you fall off a bike, you get back on, right? We're not saying we don't believe you. But even though they said that, sometimes I'd look at Michael or I'd look at Ambery, and I knew that when I was talking, they're sort of like, yeah, we believe you, but inside you knew that they didn't, or maybe seeing is believing. So unless they saw, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Like someone that's never seen a ghost before, it's like when you say I saw a ghost, like, oh, did you? And then when they say one themselves, they like expect you to believe them just the same. But yeah, it just happened where we come up with this thing, and I agreed. It took me a lot to agree, and we'll go back through the woods. I'm going to try go through because like so many different entrances, but I knew the entrance that I started in last time. I knew that I was going to go through the woods and I would end up and surprise my good friend Ronnie and turn up at a place at Norwood Green on Station Road, which is the other end of Judy Woods. And the plan was to cut through and then we'll have a little go see Ronnie and way back we'll cut through when it's a little bit dark. And not so it's pitch black and frightens me. Just so it's a bit dim to sort of calm my nerves a bit. But me being me, I put it off and was waiting to go in the flat, which entrance is only probably about 150 yards away to 200. We're putting it off and I end up being around about 7 o'clock I left. And over here in UK, and it gets dark in summertime around 9:45. So anyway, we set off at 7 o'clock, went through the woods. I started walking through. Michael were there, was talking as normal, Michael Thompson, and then Anne-Marie were there and talking. They kept saying, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And it did be heading. So I said, "Yeah, I'm all right." We stopped asking me because the more they were asking me if I'm all right, the worse it made me feel. So I got through it. I went there. I started walking through the woods. And I didn't feel at ease at all. I felt a bit nervous, a bit tense. And the more I walked through the woods, the more I visualized what I saw. So much so that I started actually doubting myself, thinking, was it actually Dogman? Was it a bit this? But I knew it was. And I shouldn't, which you'll find out what I'm talking about now. I shouldn't. My biggest mistake is to bring these people into the woods because it ended up not so nice. So as we started entering the woods, there was a fence on the left-hand side. It'd like been torn down or ripped. It were like these big steel wooden pegs which got the spike in. They probably go about, I don't know, I'm 5'8", 5'9" maybe. Goes to about top of my waist. And the railing there had been destroyed. So we thought, because we're going to have this fire, we'll pick up these pegs. So we all grabbed pegs and walked forward. And we've been going for another 5-10 minutes or so. And we found this area which it had like a big open mud patch where it looks like someone had a fire there before. And they said it wasn't too close to trees. It was a good location. So we put all the wood down there and got ready to have like a little fire for after we visit Ronnie. And then she stored it on her phone in the location because I said, "How are we going to find out when I get back here?" So I don't know how she did it because I'm not right good with doing these locations and whatnot on iPhones and Samsungs or whatever you play on. So she stored it and then we wondered and we thought which path to go. So we got on location again. Oh, no, this entrance here to go to Norwood Green, which is on Station Road. So we managed to find destination. Ronnie was big knock on the door from Michael, even though he didn't met Ronnie. But it was funny. And big welcome surprise, or surprise of shock, a surprise of happiness. "Oh, what are you doing when you all come to see me?" But the problem being is she didn't actually know what I intended to do. So Ronnie being Ronnie, host, and very good at hospitality. She's a vegan, so she pulled all these fins out at short notice, which I didn't expect her to. But like I say, Ronnie being Ronnie is very hospitality. She had like these vegan cheeses, like this smoked apple vegan cheese, and all these fins and salads, and it was quite nice. And we ate it all, and we'd have stayed a bit longer. And then Michael started getting a bit agitated. He started saying, "Come on, Simon, come on." I said, "Why are you rushing me?" He said, I know you too well." He said, "You're just putting it off." He said, "You're going to leave it till it gets so dark, and then you're not going to want to go back through woods." I said, I'm not. So I said, "All right, Ronnie." And Ronnie said, "Simon, are you sure you're up for this?" And I said, "How do you mean?" She said, "You know how much it traumatized you and made you so upset before. I don't want you to go through that again. Are you ready for this? Even though it's just going back through the woods and cutting through, I know how much the woods scare you. So do you want to go back through the woods when it's as dark as it is?" I said, "I'll be all right." And then Mike went, come on. And then I made an excuse because across the road there's a pub called the Old White Bear. So I said, "Can we pop in there for an half then? If we go now, please. I just need just before we go through." Okay then, okay. So we went in the pub. I just ordered half because I was feeling a bit sick, like my stomach was turning because of the nerves about going back through the woods. So I just ordered this half, and it must have been the longest half of my life. It went on till about must have been nearly an hour. And went, come on, you just burn it off. So I decided once again. I don't think he ever believed me, but well, was he in for a surprise? So we started going back down. We used the location, cut back through the woods, started walking slowly. It took us to a little wrong direction at first, which was at the other side, but then we managed to find it because it didn't like pinpoint apparently the exact location. So we get back there, and then we get some little bits of dry hay or brambles as you call it, and put it under fire, light it. The fire gets going. It's quite pleasant actually. So I said, "Oh, see, Simon, there's nothing to worry about." So then we've got a stone each. We sat on a stone, and we're all sat around this fire, and asked me to tell a story. So I told the story. I told the story of my encounter and what happened. They kind of listened to me. And right now, you've got off your chest. There's nothing to worry about, don't you? So I thought in my head, you just didn't believe me anyway. So then we started talking about a supernatural experience and talking about spirits. So much so that as we were talking and the fire was lit, we all just sat round and the flame was flickering. Then it turned like a blue flame, like almost like a Bunsen burner. And it was like it was just weird and like flickerings of the wood sparkling. It was like almost like burned these big logs in like a space of, I don't know, a space of, it's hard to say, minutes. But then we had this dragging noise, almost like, not like footsteps, like dragging through brambles. And then we all sort of look behind. You could see this big nose come through and make this horrific, disturbing, never heard of growl. So I think they looks like, she looks like, oh, and like looked at me, and then Michael like sort of turned around and looked at as if to say, "Have you staged this?" And I've sort of like, and then when it's actually showed and come out, she absolutely screamed, "Ah!" proper, and I sort of stepped back when it come out, and I stepped right back like 7 foot back, but she like run up the hill and started running up the bank and like screaming. So like I've never seen anything. It shot out of a bush. It jumped so over her so fast. I've never seen anything in my life like this. And so I've herded her back like some sheep to bring her back into like the circle where the fire was. At the corner of my eye, I looked at Michael. It was pale white. It was like it was in a trance. Actually, if looking at him, I thought it was dead. It could have been dead for all I knew. But then, after she started coming back, he started growling and confronting and going back up. I was stood there, and I don't know how I managed, but I felt like I was frozen. But I managed to come out of my thing, and I shouted. I put my hand forward, and I shouted, "Don't be scared. It lives in your fear." And in that moment, it turned its head, took about 3 strides towards me, which I was probably about 20, not even that, 15, 20 feet away. And it walked right up to my hand, so much that my hand was touching its belly button. As I sort of moved my eyes up, its head was like over me. Its saliva was dripping. And I could feel its saliva like puddles, like raindrops dripping on my trainers. I looked up and noticed its fan. Yeah, there was like yellow. There wasn't like tarnished white and it had, one of them looks like it had been chipped. Also, it looks like it had a damaged eye. I was horrified. In that moment, I sort of prayed and thought to myself, those magic words. And that sort of took the edge off, but I knew that it's like being put at gunpoint, at any point, if you press that, you're gone. and your life's over. I knew at any point this creature, this monster, could kill me with a mere thought. But then it just, I thought, okay, game over. Its fur felt almost spiky, almost I could feel it going through my hand like a pricks. It was really, really strange. I didn't really feel the pain at the time because it was more shock. It was more afterwards. But let's get back to that later. So then, luckily, I'll always thank her for this. She screamed again. She started running away again. So it left me, sort of chased back towards her. As when I was ill, once again, jumped, heard itself round, like steps with its side steps with its very long legs, and like circled her. So she'd like no choice but to run back to the spot. I thought Michael was in a trance, and I thought Michael was gone, but I don't know how. But he picked himself up. He picked up the big log from the fire and started spinning it around like a madman. Almost, and it looks almost like a Catherine wheel. There's one thing for sure: the Dogman don't like fire. So the Dogman backed in. At the same time, you could see a second pair of eyes in the bushes. Obviously, it was lower down, so it was obviously a juvenile. You could see its little head popping in and out. When it started spinning round with the fire, and it didn't touch the Dogman, but it scared it. It sort of rummed back towards down the banking, and it sort of growled and puffed and snouted at this little one, and they both went. Afterwards, I was very shocked. Not very good of me, but we just left the fire at embers. None of us were just waiting to go, so all three of us were just walking so fast and fast and fast. I must have been, I don't know, it felt like I was running, but I was power walking. It was that bad. I didn't speak. She was ecstatic. Michael was silent. When I got back, I asked him, he said, he couldn't move, I'm sorry. I said, no, you saved my life. If you wouldn't have spun that ember, I don't know what would have happened. And I said to Anne-Marie, if you hadn't have screamed, it was in front of me. You could, you're supposed to say, anyway, she was static anyway, so I couldn't get much sense out of her. But Michael said it like, when it was in a trance, it said it felt like it was in like a third person view, a third person mode. He said it felt like Satan had taken over his body and he couldn't move. He said it felt like a presence of hell, presence of evil. But yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Wow, that's a lot to process. What happened when you left the area?
I was worried. I felt like I was being followed. I kept looking back and stuff, and they were shouting, especially Michael, stop looking back, you're making me worse. I was just worried. And like when I spoke to you and you gave me that advice before, it's like, well, I didn't mention it. I should have mentioned it earlier, but I was worried, like, can it get in the house? Can it do this? And you informed me. You said, oh, it could get through a door easy. It can even get through walls. So it was very good advice that you gave me and told me about what possibly could happen. But like those words, it could have done, but it didn't. And I knew that it wouldn't after talking to you.
I'm so glad you came to understand that. That's great. Think about all the nights that have passed between the time of that second encounter and now where it could have broken into your house. It hasn't done that, like you just mentioned, and that's because it doesn't want to do that. That's the best possible reason. How has this latest encounter affected you compared to the first one, though?
Most of all, it's opened my horizons, my thoughts, that it is horrifying. One encounter is enough, but never ever thought in my life was two. Like I said, I doubted myself before, thinking, was this real? Was it fiction, imagination? Was I overlooking? But no, Dogman do exist, and Dogman is true. I've seen it with my own eyes. What I hate, and how it's affected me mostly, is about it's affected the people I care about, the people I love. To see Anne-Marie and the way she is, and like I say, in the mental institution, and to see the way it's affected Michael, and I put them through that, but I didn't intend to put them through that. I never thought that had happened. I even, like I said, but there were, I think, well, there's more than the word shock, there's more than the word surprised. there's not a word in the dictionary can express how I feel about putting them through that. But at the same time, like talking to you, I didn't put them through it. I wasn't to know. For all I was doing is going through to conquer my worst fear.
It sounds like you're not blaming yourself for what Anne-Marie is going through and the fact that Michael was there as well. And I'm glad, because you shouldn't blame yourself for that. You had no idea, no reason to expect that by going back a second time that you would have this second encounter. So that's not your fault. It's just unfortunate it happened. But like I said, that wasn't your fault at all. Is the fact that Anne-Marie is in that hospital more difficult for you to deal with than the encounter itself?
Yes and no. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I blame myself, so I've got a lot of guilt, but at the same time, this hasn't made me better. Far from it. No, it's even made me worse. But I've got to be strong for them. I won't go through woods. I certainly won't go through them woods again. I certainly. It's horrifying. It's disturbing. It's unnatural. It's like, why these creatures are, there's so many of them and so many encounters, not. So it's very frustrating. Very frustrating. Very, very. How people can go through these experiences and nothing's done, but then if it's not hurting people, then I guess it's not doing anything wrong. Because scaring people isn't actually a crime, is it?
Well, it's not a crime, but it still is malicious behavior. When you look at the fact that it can ruin lives and cause all these problems that they cause by mortifying eyewitnesses, it could be worse, but it's definitely not a good thing. When that Dogman closed the distance between the two of you, did it have jerky movements or smooth ones?
When it was like jumping over, it had jerky movements, like it bended leg and jumped straight over. But as it was circling on the second time when Anne-Marie run, when it was circling around, it had very smooth movements. It was like putting its legs from left and pulling the other one forward. Example, like putting your leg as far as you can to one side and the other one goes smooth to the cross, and then again. It was like circling that way. And you couldn't get past it. Well, she couldn't get past it because it was 8 steps to her one.
Yeah, they do cover a lot of ground. You told us about the small one you saw in the bushes. Being so close to that big Dogman that you touched it, you had a great view of its features. Did it seem to be male or female?
I looked up, not down, because when I had my hand out and it was up to it, it was almost like touching probably its belly button, and it was up. So I was sort of frozen, so I looked up. So it was kind of hard to say, but I didn't look down. And the last thing I thought of in that scary encounter is this a boy or a girl? It was a sort of, please, Lord, help me.
I don't blame you for focusing on its head. At all. You noticed that it had a damaged eye. Did you see any wounds that indicated that it might have been damaged during a fight with another Dogman, or did it look like something else might have been responsible?
It was hard to say. It was like, how to describe it? It looks like a part of it, I don't know how, but it looks like you could only see maybe, like a quarter moon, like a quarter moon of its eye. Like all its top was over it. So like it could see, but it's like the top of its eye had gone over its eye. It's very hard to describe. But yeah, it's like a big swollen eye, but it's not so much swollen because it's hard to on a canine to say swollen, but it's like the skin was down and you couldn't see a little bit of an eye.
Wow, Dogmen are creepy enough to look at. You see one with a damaged eye like that, and it's going to really make it creepy.
Well, yeah. I notice these features, and sometimes I have flashbacks about them. Sometimes I see them when I go to sleep. Even when I'm talking to you now, I can still see in my head its face, its eye, its teeth. It had a chipped canine tooth. It was just unreal. You couldn't write about these things. These things are just horrific, very scary creatures, as you call them. But I just don't understand. Can you explain, why did the flame turn blue?
Well, unless it was some kind of a supernatural being, it's hard to explain, so Don't have any answers for that other than, quite possibly might have been supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a sight you're never going to forget.
No.
When you reached out and touched its stomach, you said you touched its fur and it had kind of a stinging sensation. Did you push hard enough to actually touch its skin as well, or just fur?
No, it pushed to me. So when I was there, I managed to get, and I put my hand out, and it managed to it walked up to me. It put its chest right up, or it stopped right up to me, and it pushed as much as it could because I could feel that, but not enough to push me over. But it was almost like pins, but not like going all the way through. Maybe a pin going 2 millimeter, loads of pins going a few millimeters through your hand. But your palm of your hand is a very sensitive place. So, but I didn't actually feel the pain much. I could feel a prick, but I didn't actually feel the pain properly until I got over the shock.
Wow, that is so strange. When it pushed up against your hand like that, did it feel hot or cold?
It was actually quite strange, actually, now you mention that. Because when it pushed up to my hand and I could feel it, when I felt like pressure, it felt like it was like reading me. It felt like a sense of me had gone. It was really weird, like I wasn't even there. I could actually, it felt like I was out of my shell, like my soul left my body, and I would just like shell there with my hand on touching. It was very, very strange. Now you mention it, yeah, that's the way to describe it.
I'm sure you were all out of sorts. Yeah, you're doing good to know your own name at that point, so I get it. How far were you from the fire when this happened?
15, 20 feet, maybe, because I stepped back. Probably someone was like, I saw the face come out of the bush. I sort of jumped up, stepped back. There were all shots like I told you about. So yeah, probably about, I don't know, maybe 10, about 15 feet. Yeah, I'd say it'd be so.
About 15 feet. Was it solely focused on you, or did it seem to have any concerns about being that close to the fire as well?
Well, like I said at first, it started on. It's like it was getting very angry. I think it was. It must. I don't know. Now I think back to it. Must have been something to do with the fact it felt very angry when he come out and the rage. But he didn't come straight up to me, did he? He went straight up, and he started growling. Oh, it was horrible, horrible. It's not even like a growl. It's like you can't describe it. It's not like anything you see on like nature programs or any animal or any wolf. Or it's just like this tremendous evil, like a growl, but the growl's like got laughter to it. It's weird, very weird.
You're conditioned to be able to explain a lot of things in day-to-day life that happen, but how can you explain exactly what was going on when you have an experience like that?
Well, exactly. It's like saying to a blind person, what does black look like? You can't describe it because you don't possibly know. And I tell you something, like you sometimes hear people on your show and they do like imitations of the growl, but I tell you something, I haven't got the vocals to do this growl. I wouldn't even attempt to do this growl. It is so traumatic. It's so scary. It's an evil, loud, laughing, manipulating growl. It's something you haven't heard before, but almost like when it's growling, almost like it's got like thick saliva in its neck, and it's very strange.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they don't have any soft edges to them. If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. As it was standing there pushing up against the palm of your hand, did it seem to be perturbed or almost enjoying the fact that you were so terrified?
It was almost like he or she was like playing alpha male, like push it up to me, look down. Oh, you're not scared of me. When I shout with those words, if obviously it feeds on your fear. So I think it was like a confrontation, like saying, you're not scared now. You're not scared now. And I was. I was very scared. And the Dogman won because I was scared. And the second time, I think it or she, he, or whatever was just trying to prove a point to say, look, I'm the boss. And it did make me scared. So at the end of the day, it won. I lost.
Well, that's how it normally goes, unfortunately. Did the fact that the flames of your fire turned blue make you think that Dogman must have been a supernatural entity before we spoke about what happened?
No. First of all, when it goes, you just think, well, that's strange. And there's sort of everyone looks at each other, and before you know it, Ed's popping out of the bush. You don't really have time to think and elaborate on the thought.
Yeah, I'm sure you're just trying to process all of it, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
You had panic attacks and drinking problems that stemmed from that first encounter. How bad did those problems get?
Well, like I said, I'm a lot better now. I'm a granddad of two, so I need to be that way. But on the night time, I would just throwing cans of beer down my neck just to go to sleep. And I've become reliant on it, as in, on the night time, I couldn't sleep unless I had 6 cans of beer outside of my bed. But I wouldn't drink them through the day. I'd only start opening them at night. And then I'd start drinking them right fast, just to knock me out, just to make myself not hear these noises, not have these panic attacks. But even though it got to the stage that the bee wouldn't help anymore, that I was still having these panic attacks, I was still having these night terrors. So I thought, well, enough's enough. So I calmed down and that stopped all that. Go on me. Like I say, today, 5th of July, I'm a granddad for the second time. I'm happy. And that's really perks me up. As in, I've had really bad depression through all this traumatic, scary experiences. It's very hard for me to come on the show today and tell you exactly what happened because it's hard to talk about, really. But I found that talking about it does help, from like talking to you and all the people that's come forward about these encounters. We can't all be wrong. And Dogman does exist. And if Dogman was vicious and wanted to hurt anybody, then people wouldn't here to tell a story, would they now? So I'm happy that I'm talking to you, and by talking to you, it gets it off my chest and makes me feel better. Because it's like, I know you're not, but it's like you're the counsellor, because I couldn't tell the counsellor about this Dogman because the counsellor don't believe, as you know there is a Dogman. So by talking to you, it does help. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I wouldn't have it any other way. How helpful was Anne-Marie when it came to helping you come to terms with that first encounter, though?
She was very, very helpful. She told me about the tale when she was younger. But you know, when you're talking to someone, you're talking like you tell them and you open up about you've seen this creature and Dogman and or whether in the past must have had it where they tell someone that hasn't seen it or doesn't believe. Not everyone believes in spirits and werewolves and Dogmen, and until they've seen it, they don't believe. Like they were saying, seeing is believing, and that's where the word faith comes into place, because like faith, like example, God, they say that is faith because you've got to believe in something you have never seen. So a lot of people say seeing is believing. So when you talk, and like I talked to her, Anne-Marie, she did. I told her, and she did believe. But I had this, maybe it was a thought back of my mind, thinking, does she really believe me? Does she just being sympathetic? Or does she think that maybe I'm poorly in my head and she's just doing this to make me better? I don't know. But she's, like I said, she's trying to make me better. She's been very supportive girlfriend, and like I say, she took me to the woods with the best intentions to make me better. Unfortunately, it didn't make me better at all, and in fact, it made her worse 10 times over.
Well, yeah, it did, but like I said, don't be too hard on yourself, because you had no way to know that this was going to happen and that she was going to respond to this experience the way she did. So, yeah, like I said, please don't be too hard on yourself. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Simon, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yes. Sometimes you don't see things, and sometimes things seem unreal, but listen to other people that's been through these traumatic experiences and don't put yourself at risk. These things won't hurt you, but they are terrifying. When your heart feels like it's racing, it's beating through your earlobe, that's the sense of fear. If you want to put yourself through experiences, you don't go in the woods looking for it, because if you look for it, you won't see it. If you don't look for it, that's when it'll get you the best. I'm not sure if they're spiritual. I'm not sure if they're werewolves. I'm not sure if they're Dogman. I'm not sure. But what I saw is what I told in my story. Everybody keep safe and look after each other. And that's my closing notes.
Very well said. Well, Simon, I hope this marks your last encounter with a Dogman. I'm starting to wonder now. I hope there's not a third one, but if there ever is, please do reach out to me and let me know, and we'll take it from there. But having said that, thanks again so much for your time, and have a great night.